Hey everyone, it's been a while since I released an actual video. I played a Diablo 2 Season 3 ladder over the past month to reach level 99 on my Bolzon, so that's what's kept me busy, but anyway, not here to talk about that. But in between my grind to level 99 in D2R, I played about 40 hours of Diablo 4 beta over the 2 beta weekends and wanted to share my thoughts about this today and kinda compare it against Diablo 2 here and there. If you're a current D2R player and you're still sitting on the fence about Diablo 4, or you're perhaps freaking out about some of the things you've seen and heard in Diablo 4 so far, then this video is for you. I won't cover each and every little detail that I liked, disliked, or found to be a problem just to keep this video from getting too long. I'll maybe cover each specific thing in a write-up that I'll put in a forum post for the devs. So anyway, the 3 things I liked most from the beta are firstly the overall atmosphere of the game, brought together with the setting, the story, the town, and the open world design, the visual artwork and sounds of the environment, the characters, the skills, and the monsters, all on top of the game's graphics and physics engine, and the music over all that. All of these elements come together spectacularly well to make a game that feels like a gritty and true Diablo game that feels closer to the original, darker Diablo game, which is something that was not felt in Diablo 2 or 3. I enjoyed as much of the detail as I could take in the little time that I got to play the beta, that I felt at times I was testing the patience of my livestream audience as I was zooming in on things and admiring the environment in towns and around the open world. I was engaging in some of the storyline and NPCs and their dialogues around their side quests. I just felt into it so much that it makes me look forward to doing a full lore playthrough once a game comes out. The beta only gave us a taste of the game in Act 1 up to level 25, but I'm eagerly waiting with my mouse cursor over to Diablo 4's play button to explore the rest of the open world, towns, storyline, and everything else that the game will have on offer. Secondly, I loved the gameplay and how my character, the rogue, felt was superb. The movements and the use of my abilities felt smooth, intuitive, and overall reliable. I actually felt less lag issues in a minute-to-minute gameplay experience than I do with Diablo 2. Where there, I would often see monsters teleport near me or hit me from half the screen away, as well as experience frustrating latency issues with my weapon swap, or even long delays opening my cube or identifying items in Diablo 2. Those same frustrations just weren't there in Diablo 4, which was a pleasant surprise. I played 3 ranged rogue builds over the 2 weekends, each level to level 25, and the rogue gameplay and the playstyle that it encourages feels really good. I felt like I had to pay attention to my surroundings, so the monsters, hazards, and the environment. I had to think about my positioning and where I needed to go next, think about when best to use my utility skills, and I had to aim my shots intelligently for optimal kills. And any mistakes I made, I knew where I went wrong, which I could then learn from and adapt back into my playstyle accordingly to play better next time. I had a lot of fun with Penetrating Shot and Shadow Imbuement in my first playthrough, and that feeling when I first acquired and used these skills, I just felt wowed. Penetrating Shot felt so good to use to take out multiple enemies in a straight line, and then Shadow Imbuement layered on top of that with its sound effects felt even better and made me feel really powerful. The ranged rogue didn't feel overpowered, but it didn't feel weak either. In other words, it felt like it was in the right place. Some of the bosses and areas felt challenging enough that I didn't at all feel like I was wasting my time playing a game that I felt was too easy. Speaking of Diablo 4's class balance, it's not perfect, but I think the devs have done a good job overall balancing the classes so far, but whether we'll eventually see the brainless S-tier builds like we do in Diablo 2 will remain to be seen. I can see plenty of times ahead to further refine my playstyle with the rogue to overcome challenges deeper into the game of enemies hitting much harder and being harder to take down, with the help of learning the Diablo 4 elements such as items, aspects, skills, paragon boards, and the lucky hit chance mechanic. But above all, the game just feels good to play, which for me was the main make it or break it criteria for me, because without this, the rest of the pros and cons of Diablo 4, aside from experiencing the storyline once, would not matter for me in the long run. And lastly, the item mechanics and skill tree and paragon systems will bring a new layer of theory crafting complexity into Diablo 4 for players to spend a lot of time exploring. While I admit, the itemization system in Diablo 2 is pretty solid, Diablo 4's skill system is looking a lot more refined and more well thought out, where every skill point feels in some way meaningful and is an actual decision that you need to think about. Compared with Diablo 2, where bucket loads of skill points were put into synergy skills and most skills were deemed useless after finishing normal difficulty. Although Diablo 4's item system feels a little thin at the moment, which hopefully will be expanded on in the next expansion, in concert with the skill tree, class specializations and paragon boards, I think will form a larger cohesive class build-out system that is engaging enough to theorycraft over for days on end, while at the same time not being too intimidating for newer players to dip their toes into. The game will make room for us to experiment and make mistakes with our build to then eventually arrive at a build that we can be proud to have optimized based on items that we've managed to acquire along the way. On the topic of skills and experimenting, the new respec system is a great system for this, where newer characters will feel a lot more free to experiment with different skills by unlearning and learning individual skills. But as you gain levels, your character will become more solidified and respecing will become a more expensive thing to do. This is a good thing because it forces a player to make carefully considered choices with their skills to commit to a build, and it stops players from respecing cheaply at higher levels just to exploit certain dungeons or situations, which waters down the very concept of what a build actually is. I do have one specific feedback point on respecs however, but I'll cover this a bit later on. With the theory crafting possibilities available to us in Diablo 4, it will invite the community to take part in these debates and discussions around how to optimize these builds, which is a large part of the fun and engagement in an ARPG like Diablo 4, or for that matter Diablo 2 back in the day as well. On to the negatives. Aside from any bugs, things that I hope to see addressed down the road are firstly the repetitious or tedious dungeon setups. I won't go too much into this, as others have already covered this at great length already, and I agree with the feedback from the community that dungeon maps feel repetitive and tedious, with needing to double back or check every corner of dungeon sometimes. It's not fun. Next, any unnecessary steps or things that keep us in town for longer should be minimized. In dungeons or sub-areas during the campaign, I was only able to town portal to the main town of Kervashad. It would be great if we could set our town portal to a different town. This could be useful for targeting a town that is smaller and requires less time to walk through. Each town should also have access to an account stash to save the extra trip to Kervashad, which was the only place in a beta where we could access the stash. And lastly on this point, Kervashad and other larger town centres should have more than one blacksmith, vendor, jeweler and or healer to again save long trips within town to access these specific services. All of these things together should help players get back into the action quicker to help them enjoy more of that quality gameplay. And my last big feedback of the Diablo 4 beta is around some of the UI elements, with my feedback centered around the annoyances that waste time and hold us back from the action. The first one here is the world map. Blizzard should take some inspiration from Zelda Breath of the Wild here and animate the current location of the character and the selected target quest or dungeon on the map. Next, the tooltips of a lot of items require scrolling up and down within the item tooltip to be able to read everything. The item tooltip should be made a little wider and font sizes and line heights reduced slightly to fit all of the text in one view. Having to scroll up and down on item tooltips makes comparing items, which is a time-consuming task on its own, even more difficult. Next, there should be a separate inventory tab just for socketables like gems to avoid cluttering with the rest of our inventory. Next, the material and stats button should be separated out into different buttons. I thought they were different buttons before, so I don't know why they changed it back. Next, the skill tree UI can have an easier arrow-based navigation to move from cluster to cluster quite easily instead of needing to use a mouse to click and drag to move about the skill tree all the time. And finally, our learnt skills can also sometimes be hard to respec out of if we don't have enough learnt points in the skill tree. This is because each subsequent skill cluster has a minimum number of skill points to unlock it, but respecs reduce the number of total skills we have learnt, which then the game prevents us from unlearning skills in certain situations. To avoid this problem, allow us to place down respec points where the moment we unlearn a skill, that skill point gets immediately spent into our next selected respec skill in the order that we place those respec points in. And finally, getting into my real concerns that I hope Blizzard doesn't let out of control are: firstly, I hope Blizzard stays true to the promise of no pay to win, and also does not try to exploit any loopholes around this, such as introducing ways of using real money to purchase gold or elixirs that grant extra gold find. This would be a breach of good faith by Blizzard if they attempt to do something like this, which won't look good against their already tarnished image from incidents from Diablo Immortal and even internally within Blizzard over the last few years. Next, my main big concern is a hard cap of 10 character slots per Battle.net account. Not only is this number even smaller than D2R's 20 character limit for an online only game as well, which on its own I don't like, but I can at least live with, is going to affect the long-term playability of Diablo 4 and the retention of its players. If Blizzard have planned to charge for the extra character slots, then they should have been a bit more upfront about this cap in the lead up to players purchasing the game. And just maybe, throw in one free character slot every time we buy a cosmetic? Yes? No? In any case, considering the market's expectations from other games like D2R having a 20 character limit and Diablo 3 having 17, I feel like Blizzard, you guys are selling us a bit short here, especially for a game title that doesn't have a cheap price tag on it to begin with. And a suggestion on top of this too, allow players to archive their characters into some sort of read-only area, like a hero tavern for say when you complete a level 100 season grind and want to look back on the character someday. And lastly, for preventing or minimizing abuse from botters or JSP users, Diablo 4 will feature restricted trading, which allows players to trade with each other, but are restricted from trading any legendaries, aspects or unique items, or any other account-bound items. There's no question that botters selling items for money or JSP users using forum gold to buy items for an upcoming ladder will load up Diablo 4. So the question and concern here is, has Blizzard done enough to prevent these sites and users from exploiting the game to their advantage? That remains to be seen, but my guess is I don't think they've done enough to stop this kind of behaviour. As long as two parties can negotiate a trade and arrange a meet using a platform outside of the game to communicate, I think we'll continue to see this happen like we did in Diablo 2. In response to this, it would be great to see Blizzard implement a marketplace within Diablo 4 where listings are 100% anonymised and the system made airtight that allows players to trade any item that they wanted as long as trades go through this system. I think this would be a good system, but unfortunately this is something that we definitely won't see in a launch in June or in the first few ladder seasons, if we do ever see it at all. All in all, the Diablo 4 beta was great. The major hiccups that did occur were fixed up fairly quickly. The game is looking very polished and it's looking like a true successor to the previous Diablo games. So if I was to give Diablo 4 and what I've seen so far a rating, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Let's wait and see Blizzard deliver on the goods in June and make sure they don't let my huge concerns go out of control. So that's all I wanted to say today. Let me know what you think in the comments below. In the next few videos, I'll be covering the rogue builds that I put together during the beta. If you like this video or want to see more Diablo 2 and Diablo 4 content, make sure you smash the like button and hit the subscribe button on this channel. Also, I want to extend my sincere thanks to the Diablo 4 team for their hard work to date, for preparing the open beta weekends and working hard during those weekends as well, and for their continued work in delivering all of us a very solid game all the way up to and beyond June. And to you guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.